Today on Family Talk.
Hello, everyone. I'm Roger Marsh, and welcome to the Family Talk broadcast, a production of the James Dobson Family Institute. Thanks so much for listening every day across our radio network, which is now at over 1,300 outlets in all 50 states. In fact, we have added over 130 stations in places like New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, San Francisco, and Denver. This tremendous growth would not be possible without your financial and prayerful support. God has blessed our ministry, and we want to thank you for the part that you play in those blessings. Now, today we are concluding Dr. Dobson's recent conversation with Tim Lambert. Tim is the president of the Texas Homeschool Coalition. He's been passionately involved in the homeschool movement for the past 30 years. Last time on the program, Tim Lambert and Dr. Dobson looked at the tough history for homeschooling in this country. And in just a moment, they'll specifically talk about a shocking situation that has garnered national attention. It involves the Pardo family, whose 4-year-old autistic son, Drake, was seized by Child Protective Services. This is a devastating story that should concern families and stir them to action. Here now is the rest of Dr. Dobson's interview with Tim Lambert on this edition of Family Talk.
Tim, I thoroughly enjoyed our interview yesterday and appreciate you being here again today because we're dealing with fundamental issues. We're dealing, as I said yesterday at the close of the program, not just about homeschooling, as important as that is. We're really talking about the preservation of the family. And, you know, I left USC School of Medicine Children's Hospital because I saw the family falling apart. Even then, I could not have anticipated what's happening in the assault against marriage and parenthood and all aspects of family life like we're seeing today. You're seeing it too. Doesn't it break your heart?
It does, Dr. Dobson. It breaks my heart. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when we started homeschooling, if you had told me that we would be where we are today, I would never have believed you. In fact, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. So today we're, parents who are fighting decisions about gender selection are being accused of abusive and
that is taking over the curricula of many state school systems.
That's exactly right.
Where you've got 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds and you tell them that whether they're boy or girl is not what you were born to be, but it's what you choose, and you can change it, and you can change it back, and you can go to the bathroom that you choose. I mean, it's absolute craziness.
The interesting thing that's happening, Dr. Dobson, if you look at California and you look at New York, when they adopt those kinds of things, that is driving families to homeschool. My homeschool friends in New York and California are telling me they're getting thousands of phone calls from families who are saying, I can't continue this in the public school system because I need to protect my children. And so the homeschooling is swelling as a result of parents who really want to protect their children from this assault.
I've been saying for a number of years, but more recently, that if my kid was in a situation like that, I'd get him out.
Amen.
They're the ones that are most vulnerable. Yeah. Yesterday, we were talking about the Child Protective Services and how they sometimes overstep their bounds and get beyond the law and are going in and taking kids away from good parents, Christian parents that are trying to do what's right. So we've been talking about that, but today we want to get specific. We've gone from the general, now the specific. There is a case that's gotten a lot of publicity for a family by the name of Pardo. And I've been aware of it, and I'm getting phone calls from people that are saying you got to help more people know about this family because what they have been through is unconscionable. Yes. And you have been leading the fight to defend them. Tell us about that family.
Dr. Dobson, this is a homeschool family. They have been a member of our association for 5 years. They have a special needs little 4-year-old boy. He's medically fragile. He's autistic. He's had brain surgery. They struggle with issues of eating. And so this family had taken him to Dallas Children's Hospital for several years. They had the doctor who had treated them for some time had some kind of procedure that didn't go well, and the child aspirated. So they put the child in the hospital for 4 or 5 days, and the family was really upset. The doctor who did that never came by to check on the child while he was in the hospital. So
you got a kid in the hospital,
and the
doctor doesn't come see them?
Yes. So when the family took their child out, they made an official complaint against the doctor, and they asked for a new doctor. That doctor contacted Dallas Children's has what's called a child abuse unit. So this is a group of people who are funded by the state, and their job is to look for child abuse. So that doctor contacted that unit and reported this family. And
what had they done wrong?
The doctor said that the family was pursuing medical treatment that was not necessary. So they're dealing with a child who has eating issues, and so there was a disagreement between two doctors about whether or not they should have a feeding tube. And so they went to another doctor. So they changed doctors one time. And so the doctor in charge of this child abuse unit filed a complaint with Child Protective Services and said she had concerns about this child. Well, it came out that she did an incomplete review of the medical records. This little kid there's over 6,000 pages of medical records. And so when she referred that to CPS, of course, contacted the family. They left a card. The family contacted us. Our attorney representing the family contacted CPS and said, I'm representing the family. Please tell me what the allegations are. Dr. Dobson, they're required by federal and state law at the first contact to tell the family what.
They have to reveal that.
Yes, and they refused. The caseworker reviewed, the supervisor refused, and the direct supervisor refused. And our attorney is really good at what he does, and he said, you're not meeting with my client until you tell me what the allegations are. And when people ask me why he did that, I said, I don't know any good attorney worth his salt that's going to go into a meeting to represent you without knowing what the allegations are. So what CPS did, Dr. Dobson, in fact, in the court hearing on July the 2nd, this caseworker acknowledged that she didn't follow the protocol, she didn't follow state law or federal law. She took that doctor's affidavit and went to a judge in what's called an ex parte hearing. That means the family and their attorney is not notified. The only person there is CPS and the judge. And this judge had been a judge since January. This was in June. And I'm pretty sure that the caseworker misled or lied to the judge, and the judge issued an emergency removal order. And 2 caseworkers and 4 police officers showed up at this family's home. And this couple is pretty sharp. They pulled out their cell phones and they recorded this whole thing. It is heartbreaking to watch this little special needs 4-year-old boy being put in the car with police and begging, can my daddy come with me? And they took this child away. 2 weeks later, they have a hearing.
Where'd they put the child?
The child went to the hospital. So he's now at the hospital. And so
without his parents.
Without his parents. 2 weeks later, the hearing happens. We encouraged people to go. This is a little town called Kaufman, Texas. It's about 80 miles east of Dallas. 100 homeschoolers showed up in support of that family to sit in court that day to observe. And a different judge, an experienced district court judge, presided over that case. 2 days before that hearing, the doctors reached out to the family and asked if they could meet with them. So they had a meeting, and at that meeting with legal counsel, the doctor said they had concerns about some of these diagnoses. And they said, we're concerned about this autism diagnosis. So the attorney presented a letter from a doctor who had made that diagnosis, and a couple of other things that they presented medical records. And the doctor who said, well, I was not aware of that. She said, I think our concerns are resolved. And CPS said, well, ours are not. We're going to court. We want the child.
What did the judge do?
The judge listened to all this testimony, and Texas Family Code requires the judge, if there is no evidence to support the allegation of abuse or neglect to return that child to his family. And yet this judge, instead of that, he gave custody, conservatorship of that child to CPS for up to 12 months and gave CPS control of visitation to the child. He required the family to get psychological evaluations. And then, Judge, he issued a gag order that prevents the mother and father from talking to anybody about this case.
Gag order. A
gag order.
They can't talk about their own children and what's happened.
That's right. And the initial request was that our organization and any others couldn't. And so when people talk to me, I said, well, if the judge wants to sue me and bring me into court for publicizing this, I'd be glad to have him have the opportunity to do that. And Dr. Dobson, in Texas, we elect our judges.
Yeah.
We elect our judges. So these guys will be held accountable. So what's happened then, since then, is appellate attorney representing the family has filed what's called a writ of mandamus. And I'm not an attorney, but my attorneys tell me that when you're in a situation where you can't file an appeal on a case until it's over, and so if you're in a situation where you are suffering harm and continuing harm and you have no other remedy, then you file a mandamus asking the appellate court or the higher court for extraordinary relief. And so that was filed on behalf of the family on August the 2nd. That was a Friday. And
Of this year?
Of this year.
This is very current.
Yes.
This is not ancient history.
No. So on August the 2nd, before the end of the business day, the Dallas Court of Appeals issued a requirement to CPS. So the attorney issued two motions to the court: a motion to suspend the lower court decision and return the child to the family pending the court's decision on the writ of mandamus and the mandamus. The court said to CPS, that was on a Friday, we want you to respond to this motion to suspend by Monday afternoon at 5 p.m., and we're going to give you 7 days to respond to the writ of mandamus. CPS responded. The attorney representing the family is responding to theirs. We responded with what's called a friend of the court brief supporting the family, pointing out that they're violating the family's due process laws, they're violating the parents' parental rights, and several other organizations and legislators have supported our filings and have filed themselves. So that, in the meantime, last Friday, August the 9th, there was a status hearing. So there were about 30 homeschoolers in the court that day, and this day there was the original judge. And under cross-examination by the family's attorney, the caseworker admitted that she had violated state and federal law in putting that plan together. She didn't develop it in conjunction with the family. She developed it 7 days before. Her supervisor signed off on it, and she presented it to the family. So what CPS was asking the court to do that day, Dr. Dobson, is to adopt that family plan as a court order.
That they had nothing to do with.
That they had nothing to do with. So here are some of the things that plan said. That the mom has to admit that she has mental needs, that the father has to admit that his wife has serious mental needs, and that they essentially have to acknowledge that they were pursuing unnecessary medical treatment.
That's an impossible demand. If you're not so impaired, you're going to have to admit to something that's not true?
Exactly. And here's the thing, Dr. Dobson. In Texas, unfortunately, under the family code, you can get in the situation this family's in where you've been accused of something. They have your child, and if you fail to meet any of the requirements of that family plan, that's grounds for termination of your rights, regardless of whether or not you have been proven to be abusive or neglectful.
Well, where's the child today?
The child is in foster care today.
Foster care.
So the family also...
Tell me what the complaint against the parents is. What have they done? Has that ever been specified?
The complaint, based on the doctor's concern about requesting unnecessary medical treatment, has been translated by CPS into medical child abuse. And Dr. Dobson, the issue was they went to a different doctor. If there's a disagreement between two doctors, then I get to choose as a parent which doctor that I go with. And so we are praying that the Dallas Court of Appeals will remedy this situation and issue this writ of mandamus and restore this family.
Is this public knowledge now? Has this gone all across the country?
Yes.
You did not live up to the gag order.
No. In fact, at the hearing on the 9th, the ultimate gag order they amended by saying it only applied to the Pardos. So the attorney ad litem representing the child brought it up and said, Your Honor, the Homeschool Coalition is still talking about this. We need to enforce the gag order. And the judge said, no, I've read this. The gag order only applies to parties to the suit, and the Homeschool Coalition is not.
They're still not able to defend themselves.
They cannot. And the video that we put together, which has now had since in 4 days, it's had 1 million views.
Really?
We've done that because the family cannot speak for themselves. They cannot tell the public what's happening.
Has that been on Facebook or anywhere?
Oh, yes, it's on our Facebook.
So people can see it.
Absolutely.
Tell us how.
It's hashtag Bring Drake Home, and the website, we have a standalone website, bringdrakehome.com. So you can view that on social media. We're encouraging people to go to the website, watch the video, share the video, pass that on. We are trying to bring pressure on the governor in Texas. Dr. Dobson, we had these CPS issues and other legislative fixes in our last session that just ended in May, and there wasn't opposition to these things. Dr. Dobson, it was just that the leadership didn't consider them important, so they weren't prioritized.
Well, it's time for more people to complain about it.
Absolutely. So our goal here is...
How do they do that?
Well, go to sign the petition. We have bringdrakehome.com. There's a video to watch. There's a petition to sign. You can make a phone call or send an email to the governor and ask him to intervene. We've added 10,000.
The governor has not been willing to step in?
Not to this point. Not to this point.
He comes across as being pretty conservative. Is there something going on I don't know about?
Again, Dr. Dobson, I don't think he opposes it. I think it's, some of these politicians, there are other things more important on their plate. And we're trying to help them understand that what happens to families is critically important. I'm happy to say that in the last 4 days, 10,000 people have signed our petition. So we want to push that number, and I think with what you're doing at Family Talk, we're going to see those numbers go through the roof. We are praying that the Lord will intervene, that the Dallas Court of Appeals will end this, and that the state of Texas, our elected officials, will understand that families are at risk here. We need to protect children, and that means protecting.
So as of this moment, you've got a special needs kid who needs his parents and needs their love.
Yes.
Sitting in foster care with them not being able to hug him and hold him and cuddle him and tell him it's going to be okay.
That's right.
That's disaster. That is outrageous.
It is horrible. And I don't think this is an uncommon issue. Dr. Dobson, these are not families of means. Most of the time, they don't have enough money to hire a lawyer to protect themselves. So they just get run over by CPS in the system. So, obviously we can't defend every family out there, but we can defend this family, and the Pardos are a courageous Christian family. So we want people to pray for them, pray for comfort them and for their child, and pray for the elected officials involved and the judges, and then also that we can fix this problem. Dr. Dobson, we need to change the law in Texas, but we also need judges who will stand up for righteousness and defend the defenseless in these kinds of situations.
The parents have not been accused of physically or emotionally or sexually abused this child.
No.
There's never been a hint of that.
No. And Dr. Dobson, they have 2 other children. They have 2 older children, and there's never been any allegation about those children. There's never been anything related to that. The sole disagreement here is over who gets to make medical decisions for this child.
What sticks in my heart is that this is a special needs child, and the parents have gone through unbelievable anguish as a result of this happening. It's not easy raising a child that has problems like this. They've done the best they could.
Yeah.
And yet they have lost control of that child because of some CPS nonsense.
Yes. And Dr. Dobson, that's the reason we got involved in the political races years ago, because we realized that you have to hold these political people accountable. And in Texas, we have judicial races, and I know my lawyer friends don't like this, but we have developed a page on our website called the Texas Judicial Hall of Shame. And when we find a judge like this who refuses to enforce the law, we put their picture on that page and we tell people what they've done.
And remind them when the election
Absolutely.
is coming up.
Absolutely. And so this judge has actually said he's not going to run for re-election.
Good plan.
We'll see. We'll see. But we're going to be watching to make sure that when people get a chance, they can be reminded.
I want to make sure that our listeners know what to do about this, because the more you tell them about addresses and phone numbers and how to do that, the more will respond. And we really need an outpouring in this case, and probably wherever it is occurring. This is not a one-person,
right.
one-family case. This is happening all around the country.
That is correct. And so we have a three-pronged issue here. One is we got to defend this family and get this child back with his parents. We need to draw attention to this, what is happening all over the country to innocent families. And then we need our legislators and our elected officials to fix the problem legislatively. And then we need judges to do what's right, and stand up for the helpless.
Can they contact your organization and get the specifics?
Yes.
Give us your contact information.
Our website is thsc.org, Texas Homeschool Coalition.org. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram. The separate website we've set up for the Pardo family is bringdrakehome.com. And
you mentioned that people need to be praying about this too.
Absolutely.
Praying for that family.
Amen.
And I pray that many people will be doing that. The Lord knows about this, doesn't He?
Amen.
If it happened to them, it could happen to the people listening to us.
That's exactly right.
And if it does, I pray that there will be somebody like you and your organization to step in and help.
Thank you, Dr. Dobson. We recognize that we serve an almighty God. There is nothing too hard for Him, and the same God that Abraham and Isaac and Jacob served, we serve. There is nothing. He's not constrained to deliver by many or by few. So we are praying that God's people will respond and help us stand up for this family, and that we will rejoice and give God the glory when He answers those prayers.
We've been talking to Tim Lambert, who is the president of the Texas Homeschool Coalition. And you've been at it since 1990.
Yes, sir.
I bet you've got some other stories to tell, don't you?
We have a few. We have a few.
Does it break your heart to see what's happening?
It does. It does, Dr. Dobson, but I do believe that God is raising up the homeschool community as a group of godly and righteous people to stand for righteousness. The darker things get, the brighter his testimony shines.
Well, I've heard about your work for years and years, and it's time that we got better acquainted. And I kind of symbolically put my arm around you and tell you I'm standing with you, and whatever I can do to help you, let me know.
Well, Dr. Dobson, I can't tell you how much that means to us. You're a hero of mine and many people, and we're going to use this video and audio and all the other stuff that you're doing to help promote this message.
And besides that, I'm a Texan.
Amen, brother.
Okay. Thanks for being with us, Tim.
Thanks for having me.
And blessings to all of you.
God bless you.
This is Roger Marsh again, and what a sobering broadcast we have heard today here on Family Talk. Visit thsc.org to learn how you can support the Pardo family during this extremely difficult time. We must staunchly oppose the government infringing upon our God-given rights to parent our own children. That website again is thsc.org to follow the Pardo case. You can also visit today's broadcast page at drjamesdobson.org to learn about Tim Lambert and the Texas Homeschool Coalition. That's simply drjamesdobson.org and then click on the broadcast icon at the top of the page. Once you're there, you'll also see a link on how to receive a CD copy of these two insightful programs. You must share this story with friends and family, so be sure to order your copy of the broadcast today. Well, we've reached the end of this edition of Family Talk. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for one of Dr. Dobson's classic interviews with author and speaker Laura Petherbridge. They will address the difficult role that stepmothers play in the new family dynamic. That's next time right here on Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk.
This has been a presentation of the Dr. James Dobson Family Institute.
This is James Dobson again. As we close today's program, I just want to thank so many of you out there who make this broadcast possible with your contributions. And I want to tell you how much your generosity is appreciated.